Alright, let's do it.
Alright. Okay, so stupid Cisco tricks. I have a switch up here I'll break out in a second. We're going to use physical access to basically take over the switch and do whatever the hell we want. Standard disclaimer, there could be profanity and shit. If you break stuff doing this, it's not my fault at all. I'm not responsible if you don't listen to me either. So, here we have a typical network layout. You'll have your core, you'll have trunks going out to distribution switches, maybe layer 3s or routers at your distribution points, and then we have the access layer switches, which is what we're after tonight. So, the access is where we're after. Maybe we want to configure a port, maybe our network administrator is just a dick and he won't configure a port, so we're just going to do it for him. Things of that sort. So, here's tonight's victim up here, a 2950 Catalyst. They're old, they go for about $40 on eBay. Please note, damn, that's small. The newer Cisco stuff, the 4500s and the 3850s, they run iOS XE. That does not quite work with what I'm about to show you. The NX OS operating system also does not work in the same way. So iOS is our sweet spot. That's what we're looking for, right? So what I'm looking for is being able to do a dir and see this right here. I want to see the VLAN, the config.txt. This, you can ignore that. Then you got your bin, which is basically the binary that's going to launch on the switch. So what I'm talking about tonight is ROM-on. Anybody who's worked on a network or walked into a situation where you had to get into a switch without the password. ROM-on is a feature that's put there by Cisco. It's quite handy. I've used it many a times. On the front of Cisco switches, they have a mode button. On different ones, on this one right here, it doesn't have many modes. But on such PoE switches and things of that sort, you can use the mode button to cycle through different modes. It'll tell you what number switch it is in the stack. It'll tell you what ports are pulling power and things of that sort. So what we're going to do is use ROM-on. We're going to hold this mode button down here, and we're going to unplug the power and plug it back in, holding down that mode button. So here's the moment of truth. Okay, first, this is that switch. I can't get in. It's super serious. I'm locked out. Go away, right? So.
Did you try Cisco?
Yeah. I should have, but I know better because it's not there. Okay, so this is basically ROM-on. What you're going to see when you hold that mode button down and you plug it in and power it up, it's going to give you these three options basically. So the first thing we want to do is initialize that flash drive. So we run flash init, and what that does is it basically allows us into the directory that's storing the config, which is where we're after, right? So now, we should be able to look at that flash directory. You see here, I have a file called config.txt. So what we're going to do is get rid of that. You're going to want to put flash in front of that because without it, it doesn't work. Yes, I'm sure. Okay, so now we basically move that to a backup file. And the reason I did that, I'll show you in just a second. So now that we've got the config out of the way, we're going to boot the switch. And if you've ever looked at this, it's nothing exciting. It's kind of like FTP hashing. Come on. Once it's loaded, it should come up to what you would see if you bought this switch brand new, which is without a config, which is what we're after. Okay, so here we are. Would you like to configure the system? Actually, no, I would not. Okay, no one's pissed about my SNMP, things of that sort. Look, here we are. Now, we have just taken over this tonight. which is cool and all, but everybody's going to notice if you take this down because look here, you don't have any of your config. So, you're kind of screwed at this point, but luckily, everybody made a backup of that file. So what we're going to do is copy that backup into run. And it's copied into the, we got a, it's really pissed. All those ports are shut down. It's got a host name now. You're here, we got config back. One thing to note, you're gonna want to remove your scratch file.
Pretty good at one-handed typing.
I know, I need to get right? Okay, so now if we do a dir, we don't have a config. What the hell? So maybe we want to put our right mem, that's your friend. Make sure to write mem when you do this, otherwise you're going to reboot the switch, 6 months down the road and it's not going to have a config. So basically we've got access, we can configure whatever we want, ports, port-wise, look at the VLANs, things of that sort. So basically you've taken over the whole thing. Oh, super secret information, I should have put myself in that. 99.
So when they start trying to log in using their password,
No.
Why doesn't this work?
It'll still work. Because we're right back to where we were. Although we were on the console. We still had access and everybody could get into it just as you would expect. So I know. Oh, shit. I know it's Adam. So if you look down here, it'll have the username right there. Username, Adam, privilege, blah, 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 blah. It's got your hash there. Down here, you're asking about if people can get in or whatnot. As long as those usernames are there or whatever, they got TACACs, they can get into it remotely. Just the same, because you got your VTYs configured for SSH. This is logging local, but if you had radio server or something like that, it would go there.
Is there any logs that show that you set?
The reboot log. So the one thing you can do is you can change it, copy, get into the switch, copy the config orig back to config.txt, do reload in 2 days, change your VLAN to whatever you want, and in 2 days the switch will reboot and clear all the known trace of that config, right? Indeed. I've had to use it quite a few times because I walk into an environment where I don't know the information to get into the actual switch, and that sucks. So it's much faster to do this than try to password guess.
Does it work on counterfeit Cisco?
I haven't had a chance to test that yet. Let me know. So it looks like it might be success kit.
Nice. Yeah.
So this is ROM on. These are the basic options of what we just did. If you do a question mark at the beginning, it'll tell you all these things. So the first thing we did was initialize the flash, which seemed like it took forever. Then we look at the flash file system. We're looking for that config.txt. We want to copy it to a backup. We want to delete the original because that original is what causes that switch to load it when it comes up. So once you delete that original, it thinks it's brand new out of the box after you boot. That doesn't really show if it's a cat. So when it comes out, the answer no. We're in. We can do whatever we want now. Cover up your tracks. Configure whatever you want. Just remember to write mem. If you don't write mem, you're not going to have the config.txt. And whenever that thing reboots, you're going to be pissed off. It's going to be 6 months down the road when they lose power to build. So how do you prevent this? You can do this no service password recovery, which might slow someone down. Laser cats. Get yourself some laser cats. Put them in your network closets. Any questions?
What about the smart people that check the dates in the files?
Well, there is that. Assuming you set time on the switch, what about somebody who runs cat tools and does diffs on their configs? If you change something, I'll know within an hour, right? came in on the
Plausible
console.
deniability. What is that prevention string?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's no service password recovery is supposed to disable that, but I've read a lot where you can send breaks and whatnot on the console to get around that with the configuration.
So the whole thing was kind of based on that they had to have, you had to have physical access to reset the box to start with, right?
Yes, you will have to have physical access to do it.
So is the premise that, because I know you talked about 2950 switches that have been around for a while, so is the premise that people are putting these things on eBay and they have configuration still, and by the way,
Absolutely, that's a valid. I've walked into situations where we had switches in closets that have taken a shit, and you got to go in there and try to fix it. And you get there and they're not hooked up to TACAC, so your password doesn't work, and so you don't have a local account on that switch for sure. So what you have to do is do what I just did in order to gain access to it. Then you can put yourself a local account, copy the config back into it so you get everybody back, and then give yourself a local account for future use.